Hello everyone, my name is Sky, and I am the Paleontology guy. If you click on this video, you may be wondering, what is paleontology? Well, paleontology is the study of ancient life, but if you were looking for the textbook definition, you could have just looked it up yourself. So let's dig deeper into this. So, paleontology is a huge umbrella subject. It covers so many different subgenres and categories that there's way too many to list all in one sitting. So I'll go over the big three that is important, which would be paleoecology, paleobiology, and biochronology. Which, if you want to learn more about those three, I'll make separate videos about them in the future, but if there's any on this screen that you see that you would like to learn more about or just have basic definitions, I can make videos in the further, but just let me know, leave a comment down below. Alright, so the US Forest Service defines paleontology as the scientific study of life in the geological past based on examination of fossilized remains of once living organisms, such as tracks, bones, teeth, plants, and shells. Fossils are unique, non-renewable resources that paint an ancient portrait of life on Earth. But again, these are the science-y textbook definitions that nobody really wants to learn. So, you may be thinking to yourself, but Sky, paleontology, that's just dinosaurs, right? Though, if you believe that, you would be wrong. You have the right spirit, champ, but try again next time. Paleontology covers so much more than just dinosaurs. While dinosaurs are the poster child, like with movies such as Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, they cover so much more than just these giant land reptiles that were beasts of their time. It can go as small as ancient microorganisms like tiny shells, plankton, or even algae, to the largest land mammal to ever exist, the Paraceratherium of the mid-Miocene epoch, or even the Dimetrodon from the early Permian period. Now, let's do a little quiz. I just mentioned the Dimetrodon, so what do you think it is? Is it A, a lizard, B, a dinosaur, C, a synapsid, or D, a mammal? I'll give you guys about 10 seconds to think of an answer. I think that's enough time. I think we all have an answer. If you said B, you would be incorrect. If you were listening, you would hear me just say that Dimetrodons were not dinosaurs. Rather, they were this weird mammal reptilian-looking thing that came way before the dinosaurs, and they were called synapsids, such as the Dilophosaurus, Gorgonopsids, and again, the Dimetrodon. So, that's one thing that I would like to point out to everyone, is that fossils are not just bones. Though some bones do turn into fossils, not every single fossil you'll find will be a bone. But that doesn't mean that if you found an ancient tool from, let's say, Homo floresiensis, that's not necessarily a fossil. A fossil has to be a biological organism from the past that has been fossilized over time and became, I guess a rock. You can determine if things are fossils, I think, by licking them. Would not recommend doing that. It is kind of gross. So, if you made it this far, I would just like to say, can you guys please just like and subscribe? This video is hopefully going to be a long-term project for my school, and I would like to have my audience go as far as I can to reach out to people. What else do I need to say? I am 17, just throw that out there, so whatever you say, don't be weird. But on to your nerd video, nerds. So, you may be wondering, why do I need to care about paleontology, or how does this affect me? Paleontology often changes how scientists think of modern-day animals. Let's say, for example, you want to learn why bats learn to fly. They're the only flying mammal. We could go back and past the record timeline through using fossils to determine how and when the bats evolved flight. Or we can determine past weather cycles to differentiate current modern-day cycles from man-made or natural. Along with this, we are currently experiencing rising CO2 levels. Whether you believe it or not, global warming is happening, which is making the ocean water temperatures rising as well, which are killing off coral. By determining how this happened in the past, we can help protect our coral of today to avoid another man-made mass extinction level event. Another thing that paleontology can help us do is determine migration patterns of ancient animals. It's like finding different species across different continents. It's like putting together puzzle pieces that are globally around the world. However, when it comes to migration, we don't exactly have the best evidence to support it, as we don't have time travel yet as of 2025. So we have no way of going back in time to prove our theories. So, paleontology also heavily impacts economic and energy resources. So I'm sure most of us have heard of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are mainly consisted of plankton, algae, and other plant matters. But these fossil fuels are non-renewable resources that help us produce coal, oil, and natural gases, which are kind of a big important part of our everyday life. If you want to get from point A to point B, you might need fossil fuels. If even powering your lights needs fossil fuels. So, continental drift. I'm sure you've all heard of the super landmass called Pangea. But Pangea eventually started to separate, leaving the continents that we now know today. This separation left mineral deposits across our oceans and even connecting our landmasses to what they once were before. You might find a bunch of nickel in a certain place in Chile, but then that part, well, I guess Chile's a bad example. Let's say, let me look at the Pangea real quick. You find certain deposits in Canada that are also found in Europe or Greenland. Alright, on to my favorite portion of the video, mythology and folklore. So, as you may know, dragons. They are these ancient, or sometimes ancient, mystical creatures that are can be described as winged serpents, fire-breathing lizards, or just any other powerful deity. But what you may not know is that paleontology, specifically dinosaur skulls, helped inspire what we now know as dragons. So imagine yourself in East Asia. You're a farmer digging up some holes for rice, wheat, or corn. You hit something hard, and that thing that happens to be a giant lizard-looking head. And you're like, man, this must be some ancient deity or god. So you go tell your friends, you go tell your buddies, and eventually spreads throughout, Eastern Asia. But what people don't know is that these were actually dinosaurs and not mystical creatures. Because again, this is around, let's say, 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. They don't have the knowledge of dinosaurs yet, as if dinosaurs weren't really officially described until I think mid-1800s. So, but not only were these thought to be dragons, but even the fossils were thought to be gifts from gods and goddesses to help cure diseases and ailments. Anyways, griffins. I'm sure most of you know what a griffin is, the eagle-lion winged hybrid. So the griffin originated in the Middle East around 3000 BCE or 5,000 years ago. It is thought by Adrian Mayer who has published multiple stories on history, paleontology, and how paleontology affected myths and folklore. But specifically, she wanted to focus on the griffins because she believed that the Protoceratops helped inspire the griffin. Which you may be thinking to yourself, if you know what a Protoceratops is, and you are like me, how did they get a winged feathered hybrid from this clunky looking guy? So, the beak right here, as you can see, may have resembled the eagle beak, was where they got the eagle from. And it is theorized that the frill represented the mane of a lion. But don't get me started on how they even got the wings, because if you look in here, there's really no wing attachment points. And getting into the physics and logistics of it, being a six-limbed creature is impossible for vertebrae. But that's kind of besides the point right now. I mean, put yourself in their shoes. This is, like I said, 5,000 years ago. You may have only had the skull. You may not even know what it is, and you're just led to believe whatever you want. And because it is in the Middle East, there's a lot of trade routes throughout the Middle East, which made information spread. Not only were goods and spices, stuff like that spread, but so was information, mythology, folklore, stuff like that. So I believe that this is how they got to Greece, and how we now know the griffins as the mystical, deity-like creatures that we know them as today. Anyways, the last part I want to talk about when it comes to mythology is how the elephants inspired the Cyclops. Yes, you heard me right. The Cyclops, the giant, bovidae-loving, horrid creature, was inspired by the long nose, long tusk, funky-looking guy, right? And but I just need you, close your eyes for just a second, and imagine a mammoth or elephant's skull, even a mastodon rex, whatever you prefer. Just close your eyes, imagine that for just about 5 seconds. Alright, so now open your eyes. Was that what you're thinking of? The huge, almost human-like skull with one socket that could be used for an eye, which was actually where the nose or the nostril system was? So you can't even blame the ancient Greeks for believing that the elephant skull was a cyclops or a giant humanoid one-eyed creature. Okay, so on to a portion that's just talking about myself. So I am a senior here at my school called Vanguard Academy. We are a project-based school, and due to it being my senior year, we do this thing called a senior capstone. Our senior capstone is to identify problems in our community and create solutions to solve those problems to help others. So the problem I identified was combating misinformation in paleontology. For me, paleontology has been a huge aspect of my life ever since I was 6 years old. I loved dinosaurs. I would watch dinosaur shows such like Dinosaur King, Dino Squad, Dino Train even. And then that led to me, throughout my years, growing to be just a love for paleontology as a whole. So my project is to create these forms of semi-short form pseudo-documentaries, aka YouTube videos, to help inform others in an engaging and digestible way. So you may be wondering, if this is my first video, do I have any ideas for a second one? My next video idea will be to determine how the Saurophagonax, the Oklahoma State fossil, whether or not it is what we think it is, one of the largest theropod dinosaurs of today, or if it's a chimera fossil as theorized by a student at OU. Anyways, that's a wrap for this video. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. And if you please I have no other way but to plead and beg for you guys to subscribe. I really like my videos to reach an audience that far surpasses my dreams. If you guys could help make that happen, I'd be so thankful. Peace out, y'all.